Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Easy English Podcast. I'm Hannah, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Alex. Today, we have a very special episode for our beginner and intermediate listeners. We are going to share a slow, easy-to-understand story about a common nightmare: borrowing something from a friend and accidentally ruining it. Specifically, dropping a beautiful book into a bathtub. Alex, have you ever done something like this?
Oh, Hannah, just thinking about it makes my heart beat fast. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am actually very clumsy. I haven't dropped a book in a bath, but I once spilled hot coffee all over my sister's school notebook. It was a disaster. Today, we are going to learn some great vocabulary to describe books, paper, and what happens when paper gets wet. This is called water damage. Let's start with some of those words before we jump into the story, shall we?
That is a great idea. It's always easier to understand a story when you know the key words first. Let's start with the word borrow. To borrow means to take something from someone with the promise that you will return it later. For example, "Can I borrow your pen for a minute?" Alex, what is the opposite of borrow?
The opposite is lend. To lend means to give something to someone for a short time. So if Hannah borrows a pen from me, it means I lend my pen to Hannah. In our story, our main character, Sarah, borrows a very special book from her best friend, Lily. The book is not just any book. It is Lily's absolute favorite.
Yes, and because it is Lily's favorite book, it is a hardback book. Listeners, do you know the difference between a hardback and a paperback book? A hardback book has a hard, stiff cover made of cardboard. It is strong and usually expensive. A paperback book has a soft, flexible cover made of thin paper. Hardbacks are beautiful, but they are also very heavy.
Exactly, and this hardback book has beautiful, thick paper pages. Now, let's look at the word wet. We all know what wet means, but when paper gets wet, it changes. It becomes soggy. That is a fun word to say. Soggy, S-O-G-G-Y. Soggy means very wet and soft. If you leave your cereal in milk for too long, it gets soggy. If you drop a book in water, the pages get soggy and they can tear very easily.
Oh, tear is another good word. T-E-A-R. To tear means to pull something apart into pieces. Wet paper is very fragile, so if you touch it too hard, you might tear the page. Another thing that happens to wet paper is that it wrinkles. When paper wrinkles, it is no longer smooth and flat. It has lots of small folds and lines on it. Even after a wet book dries, the pages usually stay wrinkled and wavy.
Wavy pages. Yes, they look like little waves in the ocean. It is so sad when a beautiful book gets that wavy, crunchy texture. Let's also talk about smudge. S-M-U-D-G-E. When ink gets wet, the letters can smudge. This means the ink spreads out and becomes blurry, so you cannot read the words clearly anymore. A smudged page is a reader's worst enemy.
It really is. Now that we have these words, let's paint a picture of the scene. Imagine this. It is a cold, rainy Sunday evening. Sarah is tired. She wants to relax. So, she decides to take a warm, bubbly bath. She lights some candles, pours some bubble bath into the water, and grabs the book she borrowed from Lily.
Oh no, Sarah! Reading in the bath is so relaxing, but it is also so dangerous. You're holding a treasure over a pool of water. Sarah gets into the warm water. She sighs with happiness. She opens the hardback book. The pages smell clean and new. She starts to read. She is so deep in the story that she forgets where she is.
And then the accident happens. It only takes 1 second. Sarah's hands are a little soapy from the bubbles. The book is heavy. Suddenly, the book slips from her fingers. Splash! It falls right into the warm, soapy water.
My heart just stopped. Splash! The book is submerged in the water. To submerge means to go completely under the liquid. For a second, Sarah just stares at the book under the bubbles. Her mind goes blank. Then she screams, reaches into the water, and pulls the book out. But the damage is done. The book is dripping wet.
Dripping wet! Water is falling from the book in big drops. Sarah jumps out of the bathtub. She doesn't even care that she is cold and wet. She is only thinking about Lily's favorite book. She rushes to the bedroom and puts the book on her desk. The beautiful cover is ruined, and the pages are already starting to swell and become soggy.
Yes, swell is another great verb. When something swells, it becomes larger or thicker because it is absorbing water. The pages absorb the water and puff up. The book is now twice as thick as it was before. Sarah is in a complete panic. Her hands are shaking. What is she going to do?
By the way, Alex, if you enjoy listening to our stories every week, taking a second to subscribe or leave a like really helps our small show reach more English learners around the world. We appreciate it so much.
It really does. And please leave your questions in the comments as we love reading and answering them. Anyway, back to our poor wet book.
She tries to think of ways to dry it. This is where the story gets really interesting, and we see all the funny, desperate things people do when they are panicking. First, she gets a dry towel and tries to pat the pages dry. But as we said, the paper is very fragile. When she touches the first page, she almost tears it. So she stops. She needs a better plan.
Then she thinks, what about a hairdryer? That is a classic idea. She runs to the bathroom, grabs her hairdryer, plugs it in, and turns it on high heat. She blows the hot air onto the wet pages. But the air is too strong. It blows the pages around, and she is afraid they will tear or warp even more. Plus, it is taking a very long time.
Yes, warp is another word for when paper or wood bends out of shape because of water or heat. The pages are warping and turning wavy right before her eyes. It looks terrible. Sarah is almost crying now. She decides to look online for help. She types into the search bar, "How to save a wet book."
And the internet has some very strange advice. Some people say you should put the book in the freezer. Can you believe that, Hannah? Putting a book in the freezer sounds crazy, but some people swear by it because it freezes the water and stops the pages from sticking together. Sarah thinks about it, but she is too scared to put Lily's precious book next to the frozen peas.
I can understand why she was scared. Imagine Lily coming over, looking for her book, and finding it between the frozen chicken and the ice cream. That would be so hard to explain. So Sarah decides not to use the freezer. Instead, she finds another tip online: paper towels. The website says to put a piece of dry paper towel between every single wet page of the book.
Wow, every single page? That sounds like a lot of work. How many pages does the book have?
It is a big fantasy novel, Alex. It has almost 400 pages. But Sarah is desperate. She loves Lily, and she does not want to ruin their friendship. So she sits down on her bedroom floor with a giant roll of paper towels. She carefully, slowly opens the wet book. She places a sheet of paper towel, then turns the page and places another. It takes her more than an hour.
That is true dedication. Let's look at that word desperate. We use desperate when we are in a very bad situation, and we are willing to try anything, even if it is difficult or crazy, to fix it. Sarah was desperate to save the book. After she puts all those paper towels inside, what does she do next?
Well, the website says she needs to put something very heavy on top of the book to press it flat. This helps to stop the pages from warping too much as they dry. So Sarah looks around her room for the heaviest things she can find. She puts 3 giant dictionaries and a heavy ceramic lamp on top of the book. Now she just has to wait.
The waiting is the hardest part, isn't it? She has to leave it overnight. Imagine trying to sleep when you know you have a ruined, wet book under a pile of dictionaries on your desk. I bet she did not sleep very well.
She didn't. She kept waking up and looking at the desk. She was dreaming about giant waves of water and angry librarians. The next morning, as soon as the sun comes up, Sarah jumps out of bed. She runs to her desk and carefully lifts the heavy lamp and the dictionaries. She removes the paper towels one by one. And what do you think she finds, Alex?
I hope they're dry, but I have a feeling they are not perfect.
You are right. The pages are dry, yes, but they are not flat. They are very stiff and crinkly. When she touches them, they make a loud rustling sound. Crinkly means they have lots of small folds and wrinkles. The book looks twice as big as it used to because the pages are so wavy. And the beautiful front cover, the colors are faded and blurry because of the water. It looks like a book that survived a shipwreck.
Oh dear, a shipwreck. That is a perfect description. So the book is dry, but the evidence of the crime is very clear. Anyone who looks at that book for 1 second will know it was dropped in water. What is Sarah's next move? Does she try to buy a new copy, or does she decide to tell the truth?
She actually thinks about buying a new copy. She goes online to see if she can order one quickly. But oh no, the book is a special collector's edition. It is completely sold out everywhere, and it is very expensive. She cannot find another copy anywhere. She realizes she has no choice. She has to tell Lily the truth. She has to confess.
To confess means to admit that you did something wrong or bad. It is a very hard thing to do, especially with a close friend. How does Sarah plan to do this? Does she call her or does she go to her house?
She decides that sending a text message is too cowardly. She wants to be a good friend, so she decides to meet Lily in person. She packs the crinkly, wavy book into her bag and her heart is beating like a drum. She walks to their favorite neighborhood coffee shop where they agreed to meet for lunch. On the way there, she is practicing her speech in her head. What should she say?
I can imagine her practicing. Hi, Lily. Nice weather today. By the way, I gave your book a bath. It is so hard to find the right words. Let's think about some useful English phrases for apologizing in a situation like this. You want to show you are really sorry. You might say, I am so incredibly sorry. Or, I feel absolutely terrible about this.
Those are excellent phrases, Alex. I feel absolutely terrible is a very strong and sincere way to apologize. Let's practice that. I feel absolutely terrible about this. It shows that you are not just saying the words, but you actually feel the pain of the mistake. Sarah keeps repeating that in her head. She also thinks of saying, I promise I will make it up to you. To make it up to someone means to do something good to correct your mistake. For example, if you miss your friend's birthday party, you might take them out for a nice dinner later to make it up to them.
That is a great phrasal verb, to make it up to someone. We use it all the time in English. So Sarah arrives at the coffee shop. She sees Lily sitting by the window, waving happily with a big smile on her face. Lily is probably excited to talk about her favorite book. This makes Sarah feel even worse. Her stomach is doing flip-flops.
Exactly. Lily has no idea what is about to happen. Sarah sits down, and before they even order their drinks, Sarah takes a deep breath. She decides to just say it. She says, Lily, I need to tell you something, and I feel absolutely terrible about it. I had a major accident with your book. Notice how she uses major accident to prepare Lily for the bad news. A major accident is a big, serious mistake.
Right. It is always good to warn the person first so they are not totally shocked. If you say, I have some bad news, or I made a big mistake, it helps you, the person, prepare. How does Lily react when Sarah says this?
Lily looks a bit confused at first. She says, "An accident? What do you mean? Did you lose it?" Sarah reaches into her bag. Her hands are shaking a little bit. She pulls out the book, but because the pages are so stiff and crinkly, they make a loud, dry crunching sound as they rub against her bag. She places the book on the table between them. It looks so swollen and wavy. The cover is warped. Warped means bent out of shape because of the wetness.
Oh, warped is a fantastic vocabulary word for our listeners. We often use warped for wood or paper that gets wet and changes shape. When it dries, it is no longer flat. It is curved or twisted. So the book cover is warped and the pages are twice their normal size. Lily must be staring at it in disbelief.
She is. Lily's jaw drops. She looks at the book, then at Sarah, then back at the book. She touches the cover gently. She whispers, What happened to it?" Sarah looks down at her hands and confesses. She says, "I am so incredibly sorry. I was reading it in the bathtub and it slipped out of my hands. It went completely underwater."
She confessed. She told the whole truth. You know, using the words slipped out of my hands is very common when we drop something by accident. It means we did not mean to let go of it. It just slid away because it was wet or smooth. For example, the glass slipped out of my hand and broke on the kitchen floor.
Yes, it is a very natural way to explain a physical accident. Sarah continues her explanation. She says, "I tried my best to save it. I used a hairdryer on the cold setting. I put paper towels between the pages, and I even ironed them, but they still came out like this."
This is a great way to show that you tried to fix the problem. She lists the steps she took to dry the pages.
That is so important when apologizing. It shows that you care. You didn't just drop the book and leave it wet in a corner. You tried to rescue it. In English, we call this damage control. You are trying to limit the damage. Even though the pages are crinkly and warped, Sarah put a lot of effort into drying them. How does Lily respond to this explanation?
Well, there is a long, quiet pause. The coffee shop is noisy, but at their table, it is completely silent. Sarah is waiting for Lily to get angry. But then suddenly, Lily starts to giggle. The giggle turns into a laugh, and soon she is laughing out loud.
Really? She is laughing? That is not the reaction I expected. Why is she laughing?
Lily points at the book and says, "Sarah, I am laughing because I can just picture you in the bathroom screaming and chasing a floating book in the tub and then spending hours ironing pages with a clothes iron. That is the most hilarious and dramatic thing I have ever heard." Lily is a very warm and understanding friend. She realizes it was just a silly accident.
Wow, Lily is an amazing friend. She saw the funny side of the situation. That is such a relief for Sarah. But what about the book itself? It was a rare collector's edition, right? Is Lily sad about that?
She is a little sad, yes. She says, "I do love this special edition, but a book is just an object. Our friendship is much more important. Plus, now this book has a very funny story attached to it. Every time I look at these crinkly, wavy pages, I will think of you frantically drying them with a hairdryer."
That is incredibly sweet. What a wonderful perspective. A book is just an object, but friendship is more important. That is a beautiful lesson for all of us. But Sarah still wants to make it up to her, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sarah says, "I am still going to find a replacement for you, even if I have to search every online bookstore and used bookstore in the country. And today, lunch is completely on me." When we say lunch is on me, it means I will pay for your lunch. It is a very common informal phrase we use when we want to buy food or drinks for someone.
Yes, "it's on me" is a perfect phrase to use at a restaurant or coffee shop. For example, "Don't worry about the bill. Coffee is on me today." It is a friendly gesture.
So they have lunch, they laugh about the bathtub disaster, and their friendship is actually stronger because of this honest conversation.
Exactly, Alex. It really shows that being honest right away is always the best choice. Even when we make a big mistake like ruining someone's favorite possession, telling the truth brings people closer together. And now, since Sarah's story had a happy ending, let's look at some really useful English phrases we can use in real life if we ever find ourselves in a similar situation. We all accidentally damage or break things sometimes, right? So, how do we apologize sincerely?
That is a great idea, Hannah. Apologizing is not just about saying sorry. If you want to show that you are truly sorry, especially to a good friend, you need the right words. Let's start with a very direct and sincere phrase. You can say, I am so incredibly sorry. I feel terrible about this. This shows that you are not just saying the words, but you actually feel bad inside. Hannah, how would you use that in a sentence?
I would say something like, I am so incredibly sorry. I feel terrible about this. I accidentally spilled coffee on your new jacket. It is simple, but it sounds very genuine because of the word incredibly and the phrase, I feel terrible. Another excellent phrase to use when you make a mistake is, I take full responsibility for what happened. This means you are not making excuses. You are not blaming the cat or the slippery bathtub or the weather. You are saying, this was my fault and I own the mistake.
Oh, I love that one. I take full responsibility. It sounds very mature and responsible. For example, if you borrow your friend's bicycle and get a flat tire, you can say, I take full responsibility for the flat tire. I should have been more careful on that gravel road. It immediately makes the other person feel respected because you are not trying to hide from the truth.
Yes, respect is the key word here. Now, after you apologize sincerely and take responsibility, the next step is very important. You need to offer to fix the problem or replace the item. A classic way to say this is, let me replace this for you. Or if it is something you can buy again, I insist on buying you a new one. Why do you think the word insist is so important here, Alex?
Well, when you say I insist, it means you are not really giving them a choice to say no. In a polite way, of course. Often when you damage a friend's item, they might politely say, oh, don't worry about it. It is fine. But as a good friend, you still want to make it right. So by saying, I insist on buying you a new one, you are showing that your decision is final and you really want to do this for them. For instance, I know you said it's okay, but I insist on buying you a new copy of this book.
That is a perfect explanation. Another variation of this is, how can I make this up to you? This is a wonderful, open question. It is especially useful if the item cannot be easily replaced. Maybe it is a handmade item or something with sentimental value. By asking, how can I make this up to you? You are asking the other person what would make them feel better. It could be buying them dinner, helping them with a project, or finding a creative solution.
Right. Making it up to someone means doing something good to balance out the bad thing you did. Here's an example. I am so sorry I missed your birthday dinner. How can I make it up to you? Can I take you out for lunch this weekend? It shows that you value the relationship and want to restore the balance.
We also have a very practical phrase for when we want to pay for the repairs of something we damaged. You can say, please let me cover the cost of the repairs. The verb to cover here means to pay for. It is very common in English. For example, if you scratch your friend's car door by accident, you would say, I am so sorry about the scratch. Please let me cover the cost of the repairs at the mechanic.
Exactly. It is a very polite and professional way to handle a mistake. Let's do a quick recap of these wonderful phrases for our listeners. To apologize sincerely, you can say, I am so incredibly sorry. I feel terrible about this. To accept the blame, say, I take full responsibility. To offer a solution, you can use, I insist on buying you a new one. Or, how can I make this up to you? And finally, for repairs, please let me cover the cost.
Those are such valuable phrases for everyday conversations. They help us communicate with empathy and honesty. And that, dear listeners, brings us to the end of our story and today's lesson. Sarah and Lily's story teaches us that accidents happen to everyone, but a strong friendship built on honesty can survive even a plunge into a warm bathtub.
It certainly can. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Easy English Podcast. We hope you learned some useful words and phrases today that you can use in your own lives. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, both in life and in learning English. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye, everyone!